Welcome in to the Energy Tech Podcast. Today, we are excited to host special guests Ryan Glover and Joey Felipe from Waterbridge to talk about the control room reimagined. Guys, welcome into Canonsburg.
Yep. Hey, Jeff, good to have these guys on the show. I am your co-host. I'm Mike Flotis with the Energy Tech Podcast, right here live in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, right inside the heart of the Opsite Energy Control Room. Jeff, I don't know if we can even have a live shot of that, but I am your co-host, Mike. And we've got our guests, Ryan Glover and Joey. Joey, I know you're in the background there, but announce that last name, Felipe.
Felipe. Yep.
Felipe. All right. Sounds like a plan. These guys, we're going to deep dive the Control Room Reimagined with our guests. Ryan, good to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Now, when I met you, you joined the Apache Control Room back in about 2017. We'll say this is, I always say pre-COVID. And so, I remember we brought you into the group, hired you. And would you say, first of all, for the guests, I want to introduce Ryan. Give us your background, man. Give us your story. Again, I met you at Apache, but you were doing a lot well before that. And then your foray into control rooms with Waterbridge. So kind of give us, man, your intro, man, your commercial about yourself.
Yeah, so I was originally born and raised in Southern California.
Yeah.
And so I went to school, actually, so I got my bachelor's in history. Wanted to be a history teacher.
Okay.
Wasn't quite what I expected it to be. And so the city I lived in, which is Bakersfield, California, there's basically two industries. There's agriculture or there's oil.
Gotcha.
So everybody I knew was in oil. And, I saw these guys doing all these really cool things, making a lot of money. I didn't really know anything. And so I got a job. I did basically 1 year of student teaching. And then I went into the oil industry. So I got on as with pipeline inspection doing X-ray.
Okay.
So I got to experience a lot of different things, go to a lot of different companies around California. And I was put on a job with Oxy at their Elk Hills lease.
Okay.
Spent some time with Elk Hills, and then I transitioned into an operator role.
Wow.
And I really loved being an operator. I thought it was great. I got to see a ton of stuff. Our lease had 5,200 wells. I was responsible for like 300 of those, multiple tank batteries. So I got to see a lot of different types of artificial lift, different types of pumps. I was really exposed to a lot. And then from there, I had an opportunity to move to Texas with Marathon Oil in the Eagle Ford Shale.
Okay.
So I worked out of Gonzales with Marathon Oil. I was an artificial lift tech for them. And I got to learn a lot more about artificial lift, rod design, optimization, root cause failure analysis on pumps, programming the VFDs, all that stuff. And that was really, really interesting. I love that part of the job. Towards the end of my tenure there with Marathon, I started doing some training with the workover group and stepped into some of the workover supervisor role, doing cleanouts, new installs, stuff like that. So really exposed to more detail of the downhole side of the operations, and that was great. And then what led me to with y'all with Apache was my former supervisor joined Apache. He'd reached out and said, "Hey, there's a control room." I was kind of like, I'm not super interested because at Marathon we had a kind of a digital oil field project where we centralized a lot of the control room and we were kind of really focusing on the control room.
Right.
And to be quite honest, I wasn't really a fan of it. Not to knock them, I was just kind of like I was that resistor.
So you were that guy in the field that was resistant to the digital oil field initiative pushed out by your company, right? To optimize maybe and improve?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not anything that they did wrong. I was just like, man, I don't see this working. I don't see what the vision is. I don't see what the value is. And not that I was like sabotaging it or anything like that. It just, I was like, man, this is just useless. You guys are just watching screens. Because I didn't understand. I didn't see the vision.
Right.
But then as kind of time went on, I saw more and more what they did and some of the initiatives they were pushing through there and stuff they were doing with data, and it was actually really cool. And so I was on board. And then so when Apache came, said, hey, they've started this control room. They're doing some really unique things. Get on board. And like I said, I thought about it for a while, and it was, I was on the fence because I really love what I did with artificial lift. I didn't really want to leave that. And so joined, caved in and joined Apache, and was kind of exposed to the control room side of things and all the initiatives that y'all were doing and all these projects, even going forward. And it was a really good experience, and it kind of broadened my horizon more off of just, narrowly focused production, artificial lift, to this kind of broad spectrum of production.
Right.
So Apache, was that probably 2019?
2019, and then just before COVID, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Did some restructuring, and so that led me to have some communications with Charles Lane with Waterbridge. He and I went back and forth. I had reached out to him. We had a couple of interviews together, and he was starting up this control room for Waterbridge. This produced water handling midstream company, which at the time I was like, well, I don't know. I'm in oil. I don't know if I want to do water.
Yeah.
I was kind of nervous. But I saw he was able to articulate his vision pretty clearly of what he wanted to do, and I was really impressed with his knowledge and the stuff he had done prior to Waterbridge, and so I was pretty sold with it, and so I joined Waterbridge, and it's been a huge blessing. I mean, the things that we've been exposed to, the things that I've learned personally, the people I've met with Waterbridge is just I've learned more with Waterbridge than I think any other company.
And so right now you're the director of the control room for Waterbridge.
Yes, sir.
Right. And so, just kind of I want to step back for just a second. So when we met you, now we had originally hired Dusty Radcliffe. He's probably one of the best downhole production optimizers that I know of in the industry. He actually has published papers, right, Jeff? Jeff's, I know, in the booth back there.
Dusty's great, man.
Yeah, he's world class.
Only problem is he wants to stay in Wyoming all the time. So,
So
world class fly fisherman, too. He's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, so Dusty Radcliffe, one of the great folks. And so on his advice, which we take very seriously, both Jeff and I, he's a great collaborator with us, a partner, a friend. He recommended you. And so, when we first saw the resume, we thought it helps really well. One of the things we've learned working in control rooms is we love to take people that have the hands-on experience like you did in the field, especially because you had already touched tons of different types of artificial lift, right? So you spent some time in the field. Now, I didn't know you were a resistor. However, you didn't say that in the interview. But at the same time, I think
initially
you didn't. But I think what it did was for me, it resonates with what Opsite does and what Waterbridge does. Is we want to take folks that have been in the field, that are working on wells, saltwater disposal, all the ecosystem that's involved there, and translate them to the control room. I know you said that you were resistant to that. What do you think that was? I'm only asking because, uncovering this a little bit, I think it's good for our viewers to know, because anyone that's listening to the podcast, they have some of those same challenges, whether it's staff, technology, the culture of their own employer or their company. So what do you think that was?
I just don't think at the time either it wasn't articulated clear enough to me, or I didn't care enough. But I didn't see the vision. I didn't know where this was going. I didn't know the kind of pie in the sky vision for it. And so at surface level, it just looks like, oh, they're just watching screens. They're doing a whole lot of nothing.
Right.
But, we got kind of involved to help train some of these folks in some of the well surveillance programs. And so I got to see more and more of what they were doing. I was like, okay, I get it now. I understand. Oxy, to a certain extent, I'm not like a hater of control rooms. I just didn't see it at that point.
Right.
But like Oxy had a really well run, they call it the CCF. They had a really well run control room.
Yeah.
Staff with really knowledgeable people, and that provided a lot of value. So from the operator's point of view, I saw all of that. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. They helped guide me through my day. And I maybe wasn't quite seeing that on Marathon side, even though they were calling out alarms and stuff. But I wasn't an operator for Marathon, so I didn't always interact with the control room.
Right.
So not that I was a resistor of it. I just its first iteration rollout, I could have been a better supporter of it. I think, and like I said, articulating that vision, where you want to go, the things you want to do. What's your mission statement with the control room?
Yeah.
I think that would be beneficial, and it's not like, we come across this all the time. There's people that are resistant to new technologies, new processes and stuff out there, and it's just, maybe they don't understand. They can't see it.
So you
I've
think,
always done this way. It's worked for me. Therefore, why do
Right.
I need to do something else?
it sounds to me also like whether this was Marathon, all the other players that we've worked with, Apache, EOG, and essentially even Waterbridge at some level, right? There's this disconnection between sometimes you have folks that are working in production that are artificial lift techs still, and you would think that there would be the marrying up of artificial lift tech with what's happening in the control room. Do you think that maybe played a part in as well, not just articulating the vision, but a silo of tasks maybe?
Some. So like, overall, I think, I'm very positive about Marathon, Apache, and Oxy. I think, I'm very thankful for all the stuff, and I think they're wonderful companies.
Yeah.
But where I really saw this is yes, I do think there's silos that help. There's the operations group, and then there's the SCADA group, and there's I&E group, and we all have our different priorities, and we fight for those priorities.
Right.
But like at Oxy, they had a really good structure. They all kind of funneled. So like, there's well analysts, control room, and operators were like in the kind of the same group.
Yeah.
So we reported to essentially the same person. So there was real unison within the group, and there was like that hierarchy was there, that structure. Your controller was there. You relied on them. They were the most experienced people, and they helped and guided you. And there was not this like contention where it's like, oh, that's your group. Are you trying to take
Right.
power from my group to do
Right.
things for that? So. My time in Texas, I've seen more of that. Companies naturally just kind of have little silos and
Right.
and trying to break those down. And I wouldn't say it's unusual. Most people I've talked to are like, yeah, we've encountered, resistance here and there, or you have to earn buy-in from people. But definitely the silos. Just because not everybody reports up to the same people.
Right.
So there's different priorities in different groups.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. How do you feel that translated now to what you're doing at Waterbridge? And then I want you to tell us a little bit about Waterbridge, the companies, the operations a little bit. There's no secret sauce we're going to share here, but just covering the overall, operations for Waterbridge. But before you do that, what do you think you took from your experience both at Oxy, when you were at Marathon, you had a foray there into Apache. What do you think you carried over into Waterbridge?
So it was, meeting that resistance, and it's building trust.
Right.
I learned that building trust and relationships is really important. You can't just go in there and be like, here's what I'm doing. You guys are on board. You're either on board or you're not.
Right.
My way or the highway.
Yeah.
It's building trust, building relationships. So I was exposed to that with Marathon and Apache. My time at Apache, I was driving to Pecos every week for a year there to meet with the field supervisor to gain trust. Say, hey, I'm bought into this. How can I help you? And that relationship slowly, that gap's not so wide after it slowly starts to close, and you build that trust. And so I think that's what I've taken into Waterbridge, and it's not unique. The operations group is separate from my group. But they're good guys, right?
Yeah.
And it takes some trust and some relationship building. It's the most important part of business is the relationships.
Yeah.
And going out there, listening to them, active listening, not just, hey, I'm waiting for you to say something so I can tell you how it's going to be. But,
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But I think that's what I took into Waterbridge was that this, real focus on relationships. And, I got a lot of mentoring from, my VP, Charles, on this. And, I think you build trust over time, and then these guys, you start working together as a team, break down those silos.
Yeah. So now you're the director at Waterbridge. Tell me about Waterbridge, a little bit about your operation, what you have going on there. It's, Waterbridge is pretty sizable. It's not a small, it's a pretty formidable player in saltwater disposal, right?
Yeah, it's been a wonderful company. I can't speak highly enough of them. Like I said, when I was leaving Apache, I was nervous. I was like, man, it's just produce water. I'm an oil and gas guy, you know, and I'm not gonna be touching that stuff anymore. But had I known now, I mean, I would have loved to get on board even earlier. But yeah, so you know, safe and efficient produced water handling. You know, we allow our customers to maximize their production. You know, because you drill you punch a hole in the ground, and you're going to produce oil, gas, and water. And if you've got no place for that water, that well's got to shut in.
Yeah.
And so we want to see our customers, you know, maximize their efficiency. You know, we want to help them so that the safe and efficient handling of water is really what we do. And then also, you know, sustainable water recycling. But you know, over 2,400 miles of pipe. We operate primarily, you know, our main assets are in the Delaware Basin, South Texas, Eagle Ford, and then some stuff in the Arkoma Basin. But
Gotcha. Yeah. So you got some key things about it. You said over 2,000 miles of pipe at least. Your total number of produced facilities, your water production facilities is several hundred. You know, several miles of pipe. You're working directly with that produced water. You've got some large takeaways that you have. So you've got an operation that is a typical part of the ecosystem for a lot of large players, right? So everyone's got their produced water. So I don't think you're out of the oil and gas industry, or you're not out of crude oil and liquids by any means of their stretch.
No. We're married with the upstream. You know, we technically are a midstream company, but we're very married with the upstream. You know, because we're looking at their drilling schedules, flow backs, buybacks, all those types of things.
Yeah.
You know, to make sure that we're meeting their needs. And you know, and some of my past exposure with water handling has been, you know, kind of site by site, individual sites. You have to truck it, or maybe you run a line to that site.
Right.
And then, you know, if you drill a bunch of wells, you overreach the capacity. But what Waterbridge was done, what I found was really awesome, was that, you know, their infrastructure network is just it's sprawling.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we can move capacity through, you know, if a producer decides to bring on a few wells, we've got capacity. It's really our capacity that's really, you know, it was impressive to me, is that, hey, we can move water from different places to the other. We're not stuck on just one site. Hey, this, you know, the XYZ site can only take X amount of volumes. No, you're connected to this, you know, this huge infrastructure, this huge network of safe and efficient water handling.
So when you started, how do you think Waterbridge has scaled up now since day one? When you started day one, how has it grown? I mean, you know, again, no secret sauce here. It's just that, hey, actually, Mike, we started with 50 facilities. Today we're X. You know, what does that? How did that look in terms of growth? Give me a perspective on it.
You know, I probably don't know as much as I should from the, you know, the control room standpoint.
Sure.
But I've got to get credit to the business development folks. I mean, they go after it. You know, they make relationships, and what I've seen has been tremendous growth and success.
Yeah.
And so when I started in 2020, you know, we had just 2 consoles covering a certain amount of areas, and it's really it's grown quite consistently year over year.
How many consoles now at Waterbridge?
5.
5 consoles, full time. So I would imagine you got at least, you know, 20 to 30 plus operators. It sounds like you've got your disposal takeaways, and you guys are doing some logistics stuff that would imagine that entails that as well. Great. You saw this scaled. You saw it scale up. Obviously, you've been there long enough to see Waterbridge from what it was to how it's scaled up. You have a lot of the same challenges that your control room peers have, even at Opsite. You know, Opsite operates and has a logistics and water desk the same way. So there's lots of the same issues. What has been one of your biggest headaches or challenges? We'll use the word challenge. I don't, you know, people think a headache that you can't manage it, but I tend to combine the two just because it is a challenge. It can be a headache, and you can't get away from that sometimes.
Right. You know, more assets, more stuff, more problems.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I would say a challenge is, as we've grown, we're bringing in more and more things. We're looking at a lot more data tags. And the answer can't always be just add headcount. Just do more and more people. You know, looking at, you know, optimizing how we do things, whether through the SCADA platform or through its controls optimization, anything like that. I'd say that's our biggest challenge, leveraging new technologies to accomplish that.
And who's your guy for that? Is that Mr. Joey Felipe? We
Yeah,
also have Joey in the room, guys, just so you know. I think we're going to do a subsequent podcast with him and Mike alone. But great technology I've seen this morning from what he was showing us. Like, y'all got some really cool stuff happening.
Yeah, so Joey's been super instrumental in all of this. So the SCADA, we use, maybe we get into it here in a little bit, but, we use Ignition. Mm-hmm. And I've always been a user I've used Wonderware and I've used Signet.
Yeah.
And so my exposure to Ignition, I was kind of blown away with just like the freedom and the stuff and the speed at which things can be done.
Yes.
And Joey was a huge part of that. And so I take no credit for any technological advances. That pretty much falls on Joey. But
yeah, you're right.
It's impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joey's going to come on. So if you're listening or watching, we want you to like us, subscribe to us, because this is not the only episode with our Waterbridge folks. Lots of information, lots of key details, some great things about what they're doing to leverage Ignition, edge data, using technologies at the edge in the field, and some of their challenges. And so, Ryan, it sounds like you're mostly responsible, just the control room, which tells me that there's a connection between the field culture, the culture there in the control room, and bridging that with technologies, right? So I think that's part of your responsibility in a sense. And so right now, one of the challenges I think in the control room is getting high-graded operators to connect with the data. In other words, turning them from not just a field person. I mean, look at yourself. Now, granted, you were a teacher, which is, I think is a plus because you already come with a learning mindset. Sometimes you have folks that they're compressor mechanics. They've worked at a plant, and all they've known is, a specific type of plant, a cryo facility, or they're in the midstream space in pipeline. So you have to bridge that, and then you have to tack on the mindset of an analyst in some cases because they get mountains of data and information. I mean, is that something that you're seeing at Waterbridge too?
It's So let me back up by saying that the average years of experience in our room is about 12 years.
Okay.
And I would say over 95% of them have actually kind of walked the walk. They've been in those field level positions, and so the background's pretty diverse. So we have folks from the upstream, the midstream, the downstream, and they all bring unique skills. Yeah. So, our midstream guys are really good at following procedures, SOPs. If alarm, A comes in, I press button B. They are excellent at execution.
Yeah.
Very good. The upstream guys are better at kind of correlating, taking some multiple variables, piecing them together, bringing those things in and kind of solving a problem. And then the downstream guys are very good at working with complex situations, right? You work at a refinery, a big cryo plant. There's some pretty complex, processes in place that have to be done right all the time. So there's a good blend of bringing that together. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So, and again, how are you guys handling that in terms of like high grading your operators continuously? Because lots of experience is good. You marry that with the fact that whether you're Waterbridge or you're Opsite Energy, just because you're growing doesn't mean you're scaling, right?
Right. So we've got all this wonderful data. Joey and his team have brought in us, delivered a great SCADA system. Yeah. All this data. It's like, all right, now what do we do with it? It's just great to have. You got to do something with it. There's a couple different approaches, right? And I think, now and in the future, some of our, current and future initiatives is like looking at leveraging some of these new technologies to take some of that workload off the controller or assisting the controller, optimizing the controller. But another piece too has been the Waterbridge's investment in people.
Yeah.
And so some of the environments I'm used to is basically kind of stay in your lane. Like you're a controller, just do your job, go home. Just be a
Right.
warm body.
Right.
Waterbridge invests in training, and so all of my guys, they get yearly goals that take them basically outside of that room. Joey puts on technology training for them, so he gets them hands-on in PLCs and cabinets and radio equipment. The measurement group will get hands-on with these guys, and so they're starting to piece together some expertise in these areas that they're responsible for. And so when they see diagnostic data from a meter, they can, they don't have to just be so reactive. They can be proactive with it. So now I understand what this data means. Now how do I ingest that and do something about it? And so I think investing in people and your controllers, which I think, a lot of maybe other control rooms, they don't do that. It's kind of,
You're right.
Stay in your lane a little bit. Don't worry about what the SCADA team's doing, and we don't adhere to that. If they want to learn SCADA.
Why is that, Glover? So, what we find over, we've worked together, I've known you a long time. We've worked in a lot of different control room environments, but you really got to get that buy-in from the field. And, I've been in control rooms where it was top down. Here, this control room does everything down. We just visited one in Virginia, and it was kind of cool to see, like, hey, everything starts at the control room down. But that obviously, either you got to have a deficiency in technology in the field to get that, or you got to have a complete culture buy-in, which is what they've got, what sounds like what you've got, or you're moving towards.
Well, so like within our own group, yeah, we have control over that. So Joey and I, the measurement, electrical engineering, INE, we all report up through Charles. So, we can take those initiatives no problem. Joey and I work together all the time. Measurement, INE, we work together all the time. So if there's stuff we want to learn or cross-train people, that's zero issue.
Yeah.
The other groups, I would say Waterbridge has totally been willing. The field's like, hey, come shadow with us. We're the same way. We've got a cross-training program. We'll bring, some of my controllers have been in the field. They were previous controllers that we brought them in. They did a couple stints with us, training, and then an opportunity arose, and they moved into that role. So
it sounds to me like, without you even saying it, it sounds to me like what you've done is taking your teaching background, taking your resistance in the field, and have translated that to create a high-graded operator that is receiving additional training on top of their existing experience and leveraging data and finding a way to optimize that operator, right? I mean, that's essentially what you're saying you're doing.
I think we're doing the training piece well. Like we're getting people up to date on technologies and different things that they wouldn't be exposed to, like measurement, INE technology, SCADA technology, all that stuff. So we're doing that part of high grading.
Yeah.
Now the next step is the tools, the technology, the AI. How do we integrate it now?
Yeah.
Because you hear a lot of buzzwords, machine learning, neural networks, and it's like, okay, I just want to see how that works. Like, how are you going to make my job better as a controller?
Right.
Like, we can talk about all we want, but let me see it now. And so I think those are some of the steps. I think in the future, it's like applying some of these, leak detection analytics, that take some of that workload off of the controller so they can manage more and more efficiently.
Yeah, so we're asking folks to don't forget to like and subscribe to us at Opsite Energy, because one of those episodes with Waterbridge, we're going to cover the advent and the leveraging of AI and artificial intelligence, what that really means. But as part of a sneak peek to that, Ryan, is, at Opsite, we're firm believers in leveraging AI, but not to replace operators. Okay, it's to augment the operator, because we do want them focused on learning about equipment and learning what is functioning in the field, and then leveraging AI to take on the mundane responsibilities that they can't see with the naked eye. So I think that is the best way I can put it, because operators sitting on a desk can't predict anything. They really can't. But if you can leverage an AI tool to help you recommend, augment, and predict, of course, that's the best way. So I know you guys are looking into that. How are you kind of preparing these guys for that? What do you think?
It's kind of a slow burn. It's just kind of built into our culture.
Yeah.
It's, we don't want just warm bodies. I would say the whole team is very driven. They want to learn. They're hungry for it. They're interested in this technology. A lot of these guys, they fly drones and they're interested in AI and all that stuff. So this is kind of right in their wheelhouse. And so, it's not forced upon them per se. Like, a lot of these guys have the interest. They're super excited about it. So, and as the business grows, I think you have to scale in that direction.
Yeah.
That you have to augment some of these actions. You're right. There's no replacing the human. I don't agree with that either.
Right.
We're going to have AI just take over everything. Like, even in the field, the field operators are still super valuable. They still have their place.
Yes.
Absolutely. They're not replaceable.
Yeah.
But can we do things more efficiently? Can we do things better? Even if it's, maybe some of that huge hanging fruit's gone, but it's like little steps too. Like, how do we just get incrementally better?
Yeah.
Incrementally better. And then you look up and you've got a really optimized, workflow.
One of the key things I wanted to pick on here for a second is your position with Ignition in the control room. I've had the chance to work in both Signet, Wonderware, Telvent, Honeywell. I mean, you name it, I probably put my hands on it. And I find that in every Ignition instance, even what I call the bad ones, the minimal installations, have always managed to help the control room, even with small proofs of concept. How is Waterbridge kind of leveraging Ignition for that?
Well, I've got to give credit to, shameless plug here, to obviously Joey.
Yeah.
And then the SCADA manager, Chris Morris.
Okay.
It's by far the best SCADA platform I've ever worked on.
Yeah.
And it was really controller driven, a lot of that.
Right.
And so as we're working, we're like, hey, we need this. Boom, it's added. There's no red tape. The SCADA team's right in house.
Yeah.
It's added. They're in our own group. We're not. There's no silo between us. And so it's been developed. It's like everything we want, we get.
Yeah.
And get quickly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, we need this tool. We need to analyze this. We need this functionality. And it's just boom, 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 one after another. And Ignition's just grown. And so obviously, my opinion is very high of Ignition.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's a great system. Most controllers that work for me, they come to Ignition, they love it too. And we're seeing the industry kind of go that direction too.
Yeah.
It's not without its flaws, but I mean, it's great. But I think really the key piece of this is the SCADA support that we have. There's not a lot of red tape.
Yeah.
It's a phone call, a work order, a conversation to one SCADA guys. Hey, we need this. Immediate.
So that's not related to Ignition itself. That's your own culture in the organization, right?
Right, because I need a usable program. We can talk about all the functionality that's offered in the market, but if I can't do what I need to do in the system, it's not built for me or the controllers. It's worthless. Yeah. And so, the ability to kind of custom tailor some of those modules in there and add the functionality we want has been really helpful.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned about other platforms, if I had to kind of put Ignition on one side, is that the others are what I call a paywall system. That means that we've got to pay to play with it. Ignition, you don't have to do that. But at the same time, because you don't have to do that, people don't buy things for all the cool little features. What they buy it for is the feeling. And what I'm hearing from you is that you're getting the feeling that we can get something done faster. I get the feeling that when I use Ignition, I get the feeling that my team or our culture is able to use the product pretty fast. Mm-hmm. We can add things pretty fast. I get the feeling that I don't have to pay an astronomical amount of money in order to play with it, even if it's for free to start out. I'm sure Joey's in the background and knows that we're going to install Ignition and stand it up right now and, keep perpetuating that license until we're ready to buy it and play with it. So I guess what I'm saying is I think your team, along with your own culture of we don't like red tape, is the feeling that we don't have red tape, right? I mean,
it's adaptive. So I think what Waterbridge does really well is we adapt.
Yeah.
So our customers, stakeholders have needs. We're really flexible. We adapt really well, and I think that same culture lies within the Charles's group, which is called the Technical Field Services Group, lies within us as well. So it's like, hey, quickly adapt. Let's get a solution, and then let's improve upon it.
Wow. And so what do you think the future holds for that in terms of your culture growing? Because remember, I said earlier that just because you're growing doesn't mean you're scaling, but with things like Ignition and other technologies, sounds to me like there's lots of opportunity for Waterbridge to grow, evolve, and maybe even add new customers. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, looking at video analytics, some AI and video analytics, because we've got a large number of camera feeds.
Yeah.
And it's like, a human can only look at so many cameras at one time.
You're right.
efficiently.
Right.
I may be able to look at all of them, but I'm going to miss something.
Right.
Looking at leveraging AI for that. So, it puts it right in front of hey, you're really only looking at, the top percentage of things that need addressed or issues that are found or whatever the case may be, and augmenting that data. It's more predictive. We want to move in the more predictive role.
Yeah.
Where it's like we're looking at hydraulic models and flows and predictive pump schemes where it's like, hey, this is really what you should be flowing and you're not, and the differences between some of that, and preventing some of these problems or getting to them, before they happen.
Yeah.
A lot of control rooms right now are very just reactive, and that's just kind of the nature. I get an alarm, I go react to it. But I think the real benefit, I think the future is predictive.
Yeah. So it sounds like Waterbridge is stepping beyond what I call baseline services or baseline operating. In other words, the floor level stuff, monitoring and reacting, and you want to move to a high graded predictive state of your operation.
We want to be proactive.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a piece for the reactive.
Yeah.
But we really want to be proactive, and how do we do that? Well, we have to leverage technology.
Yeah.
That's the way we do it.
So, Ryan, we get lots of visitors to the show that are other control room operators, our peers. You have directors, managers, foremen that have budgets and cultures and people that they work with. If you said, hey, Mike, the advice that I would give to myself right now or tell those control rooms things that they can do, what do you think of a few points are top 3 in your mind? May not have to be 3. Just tell me what you think it is.
I would tell them, I think the biggest hurdle is, and this is where I've been blessed with the people around me, like Joey and Charles, is be bold.
Yeah.
Forward thinking. It's so easy to get stagnant and complacent.
Yeah.
Where it's like, especially if it's a large, well-established company, they may do things right, but we kind of just fall in this trap like we've always done it this way. But be bold, push the envelope. To a certain extent, don't take no for an answer. Hey, I want to try these. I want to try this. I want to try this. What's the next step? What's the next step? Continuous improvement. That would be my main point to control rooms. That's where I see it a lot is people. It's like, well, it works. It works for us. And then 10 years down the road, it's like we're still doing the same thing with the same technology. And you look up and I would also encourage other folks to go and interface with other control rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And share experiences, and because that opens your eyes. You're like, whoa, okay, we all have the same problems.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, these guys over here are doing something really cool. They're doing something super innovative. They're using this kind of technology. Why aren't we doing that?
Speaking of which, Glover, that's why I brought you up here, man, because not everyone you walk through a new control room understands how cool it is. So how cool did you think our control room was yesterday when you came and saw our technology and all the things we're doing with ignition and things like that?
I love it. I like it. No, I was super impressed with it. And that's, and it's, I would say, like, from Joey and I, we get to see a lot of different things.
Sure.
But, even coming, it's so worthwhile to come and see other operations, how they're doing it, because you're like, man, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
And bring people just that knowledge sharing. It's like, to a certain extent, a lot of these control rooms, we're not necessarily competitors. It's,
right.
We're not sharing, proprietary things or anything
right.
like that. But there's common problems: staffing, ergonomics, culture, training. Right. Those are all things that's not, there's no
hours of
advantage.
Service. Yeah, right. All kinds of things.
PHMSA regulation, all of that
federal
stuff.
Rules.
And you get to learn and see how everyone benefits from that. And so I think this broader knowledge sharing culture, I think, is super helpful. But I know not everybody gets to experience that. So,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a collaboration. It's coming together and talking about those things, and it's okay to share challenges. You said that really well, Ryan. I think that right there is where we're going to close out the show. Because you're going to be on another episode, but for anyone that wants to capture innovation thoughts and collaborate, join us here on the Opsite Energy Tech Podcast. You can catch us, like, and subscribe. Ryan, I wish we could keep you here for several more hours. That would be exciting. I'm sure we can accommodate it, but we got to go, man. Thanks a lot. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Energy Tech Podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Flores. Take us away, Jeff.